Welcome back, everybody. Happy Saturday. Oh, let's get you all caught up. I got some goodies. I got some parts made. Um, Start with this. I got my steering wheel back from the machine shop. They bored out the hub and machined up and pressed in a new sleeve. They welded up the hole that was in the shaft and turned that back true. And now this is a nice very light press fit on the shaft, so there's no play whatsoever. He said he just drove it on with a rubber mallet, so if it does need to come back off, it will come back off fairly easy, but it's not loose at all. So all I have to do now is cross drill and make up a pin for that, and that project will be done. So that's good. I got in a new magnetic drain plug. Got a magnet in the end, so it does catch any bits of anything that metal that might be in the engine. Just a little added security there. I got my new seal surface part. Machine shop finished that up. Good job, Kenny. Appreciate it. Works perfect. Threads on here nicely. You machine the wrench flats on there so that I can tighten that up on there. It came out nice with this. I brought the front cover down to a different machine shop to have them machine in that counter bore for the lip seal because the local machine shop didn't feel comfortable doing it with the equipment that they had on hand. So like I said, I'll hopefully have that back within the next couple of weeks. I'll have to keep on him to try to get that done quickly so we can keep moving forward on this project. I got in some bits and pieces. I got in some O-rings for the mag points cover. I put that on here. That ended up being the right size, so that's nice. So now this cover fits on. If I can put it on here, fits on there nicely, and it'll actually seal up with the weather now. I can't do it with one hand here very well, but it fits on there nice and snug. I checked my points gap, 20 thou, like Matt said it should be. So we should be good there. I can put all this back together for good now. Just a little fun fact here. To check it, I used a vintage feeler gauge set that has a little historical significance to me, sentimental value. My grandpa gave me this, and it was actually his dad's. So this is actually my great grandpa's feeler gauge set. I actually got to clean it up here a little bit. It's got a little bit of surface rust on it. Can just hardly even make out the numbering on the different sizes, but like I said, I'm gonna clean that up here a little bit one of these days. I think it's just kind of nice. I find that kind of humorous and satisfying to know that I used my great-grandpa's tools on this tractor, which is roughly the vintage of the tools. I looked it up last night. This is Tiger Tools, made in USA, with a GS in the middle. And I looked it up, and the Tiger Tools was sold through Gambril's stores back in the day. So that's what the GS is for. It was Gambril's something or other. There's another part of the name of the tool company or whatever. So these tools were sold through Gambril's stores back in the day. And from best I can tell, it was only a short window of time for this Tiger Tools. It was like late 30s to early 40s is when they carried these Tiger Tools, and then they no longer carried them, kind of a short-lived brand or whatever. So that's kind of neat. Like I said, I find that oddly satisfying to know that using great-grandpa's tools. And so like we say too, next time we check the valves in like my 2035, we're going to check it with that, set them with that, just so I can say that same things, set them with great grandpa's tools. I got in some nuts and lock washers for the segment gears, nothing too exciting there. I got in some 9/16 by 2 clevis pins so that's oversized because these are 1/2 inch clevis for the part of the linkages here. I figure I'll drill them out to take out some of the slop there, go with basically an oversized pin. So that should take care of that. I'll have to cut them down in the right length and a 2 and drill a right hole. I got some center drills, different sizes, just for these various projects we're going to be doing, drilling. And, you know, I got to thinking like for drilling the steering wheel and stuff, so you can start with a nice center drill to make sure you're drilling straight and whatnot. Start to build up my machine tool supplies here a little bit. I think that's about it for incoming stuff at the moment. I had a request for some information on these toolbox and clutch access doors because the guy wants to make a new clutch access door because the one he has is a homemade one, and they just did a, you know, just like bent 90-degree corners so it doesn't look nice and rounded like the factory one. So he's going to try to, he's seen my last week's video on how I hammer formed up the toolbox door, and he's going to give his hand at making up a clutch access door. So good for you. I'll probably work on that this weekend too. Maybe get the welder fired up and do a little practice welding on some scraps, and then if I feel confident, try welding this guy up. Just for some future reference notes, if anybody else is tackling this, I'll give you some measurements here. I think I've kind of covered the toolbox door already, but here's the form here is 11 1/4 by 7 1/4, so that'd be your inside measurements. They're 1/2 inch radius corners with a 1/4 inch round over around there. The thickness of the door, I cut them down to 5/8 thick. That seems to be about the right size compared to the original. There's a little variance because these are like stamped out ones originally, but on average they're 5/8 thick. Like I said, I used a little bit thicker sheet metal than original. I used, it's like 55 thou thick. I'm not sure which gauge that is off the top of my head. If that was that 16 gauge? I don't know, I'm not sure, I shouldn't even say. But you can basically go with whatever thickness you want there. Like I said, I wanted a little bit more rigid. So the knob hole is 1 1/4 from the edge and centered up and down. These hinge holes, of course, you can just use the original bracket for left to right. They're approximately a 1/2 inch in, but I'm just going to use the bracket to size them. And then up and down, same thing. You got to kind of go by the casting, main casting on the tractor. But there again, they're approximately 1 1/4 in from the top and bottom. But you kind of got to go based on, because those hinges sit in these pockets here, so you kind of got to go based on that, kind of fit it to your particular tractor, so to speak. So I think that about covers toolbox information. I should have everything you need to build one of them then, if you need to. I've given the knob a little blueprint for the knob size in the past videos, so you can go back and check that out. I think I've talked about the rivets already. There's a little backer washer on the back side of the rivets for them, like so, just like that. So that should be everything you need to build that. The clutch access door is basically the same thing but shorter. It's the same 7 1/4 inside, and it's 7 1/4 the other way as well. So it's a square. Same 5/8 thick, same round over corners, 1/2 inch radius corners, 1/4 inch round over here for the form. The knob is in the center of the door. Same knob, same rivet, same backer, washer. The rivet holes here are approximately 1.5 or so from the edge on center between the holes. The holes themselves are about 1/2 inch center to center. And I believe these were 3/16 rivets. There again, in the past video when I made up the new spring steel, I talked about that, so that information should be back on that video. I think I covered this as well at that point, but just in case I didn't, it's 1/2 inch wide by 1/16 inch thick, spring steel. On hindsight on that, maybe a guy should try using something else, because it was very difficult to bend the spring steel. I had to heat it to get it to bend without breaking, and even then it was kind of iffy, so maybe a guy should try something different there if you're going to try to do that. In these brackets, you kind of got to use a little artistic license. They're approximately 1 1/8 inches big there. This is the original one. That's one I made. But they're approximately 1 1/8 inches that way. They are approximately 1 1/4 inches. Whoops, got to show what I'm doing. 1 1/4 inches tall. But there again, you got to kind of fit them to the casting on the tractor. I had to kind of, so they snap around the back side. They got that little bump to them on here, so you can just kind of fit them to your tractor accordingly, because I'm sure all the main castings, the main housings are probably all a little bit different because it's a casting. So that, I think, would give you pretty much all your measurements you need for that. Like I said, from the inside to the centers, maybe more like 1 3/8 from the inside, 7/16, somewhere in there. You're probably gonna kind of have to fit them to your particular casting, like I said. Somewhere in that ballpark, though. This one is centered on the door. 3.5, well, 3 5/8, whatever. Measured from the outside is a little bit 5/8. These ones are about 2 1/4 from the outside edges on center. So I think that covers all the information on making them. If not, holler and I'll get you more information, but I think that's all the important information. Oh, and it's the same story. This one's actually bent out a little bit to accommodate the bumps in the casting and stuff. There again, I might come and grind some of that stuff out and touch up that paint just to make things fit a little bit better, especially if I end up doing it on the toolbox side. We'll see how it comes together when I actually fit it. But there's this little casting bump here. I might tune that up just a little bit just to make the doors fit better. I think that covers it for now. I'm going to probably go get a little lunch and then we'll come back out. Oh, one more thing. I got the angle for the lugs, so I can finally make up the one missing lug there. And we can work on maybe welding up some of the cracked lugs and work on that so we can get this lug project done, so we can start working on getting the road band project going. So that's what I know for now. I'll check back a little bit later. Got the steering wheel set up here. It took a little figuring to get the right combination to drill this out, actually, because there's just enough clearance with this particular drill press to clear here, line up here, to get the right combination of clearing stuff here and this handle, so this would clear and the table would clear, and be able to clamp it in the vise. And it worked out well. The workbench ended up being about the right height as a support for the shaft, So what I did is I used my new center drill to start a nice centered point, 3/16, one step under a 7/16, 27/64, and then I finished it off by reaming it to the 7/16 for my 7/16 rod that I will use as a pin. That worked really well. So I think we could take it out of the setup now and make ourselves a pin. Our steering wheel is done. Got the pin made and installed, cotter pins installed. I quickly went over the whole assembly with the wire wheel to clean up a little bit of surface rust that was forming. What I really like is that with this bushing and everything, it ended up killing two birds with one stone. It tightened up the play here. It allowed us to keep the original modification of the square end of that steering shaft that I kind of wanted to keep for historical reasons. So this way, the wheel is good, solid. It won't be catching point. If we were to have left that stick out, turning or whatever, you won't catch your hand on that. But we also have the option, we can pull that pin and pull the wheel off if we ever do hook up to an implement where we need to hook up a universal there on the end of the steering shaft. So yeah, I'm happy with that. That assembly is done. So all we need now to complete that is that casting that goes on the back of the main tube here. And that's also some good news. David Dickmeyer got those parts to the foundry, and so it's in the foundry's schedule now. So he's had this casting, does the steering shaft, your clutch and shifting levers, as well as your throttle control lever. It does all of them. So that casting is going to be done. He is doing the hand crank arm for the front of the engine, where it comes out, the cast arm that comes down. Going to make one of them. And the water neck that comes out of the top of the block to go to the top of the radiator. So I was missing that part. So he's having those made as well. And there's actually a few of us 612 owners that we're going to get several of these parts cast, because this is kind of a team effort between David borrowing some of his original parts, I'm borrowing some of my original parts, Norm has borrowed some of his parts for some of these projects. So it's kind of a team effort. Mark Peterson is borrowing that seat casting bracket that replaces this homemade unit here. There should be a cast piece there. So Mark is letting us borrow his original, and he's sending that to Norm, so Norm can get a batch of them made up, because just about every tractor I've seen so far, that piece is missing. So we're going to get a number of them made up. So that's all the good news. The bad news is David's foundry is very busy, so they wouldn't even give us a for sure timeline on these parts. And he said it might even take up to 3 months. So that worries me, because Hutch is in 3 months. And if I want to get this done for the show, I'm going to need those parts back before that. So I guess all we can do is cross our fingers that they get it done in time. Like the top water neck, I could do without for now, because I could use a power unit, one of my power unit water necks, and come up with just a temporary flexible hose. And I could make, if that's all that was holding me up, I could make something work there, because you have to take one of where is it here? One of these guys and use this instead. The Allis ones are significantly taller. They're about this tall to come out properly with the neck of the radiator. But like I said, if that's all that was holding me up, I could put one of these on temporarily. So I'm not too concerned about that. And the hand crank arm, we could always come up with just a temporary thing with that. So that wouldn't be the end of the world either, if that's all that was holding me up from going to the show. But this one back here, this casting, that would be harder to fab something up for temporary. I mean, there again, I guess if that's the only thing holding me up, we'll figure out something. We'll figure out a plan B, but hopefully we can just get it done sooner than they are expecting, and we can move forward and everything will be good with the world. But yeah, so that's what I know for now. Not sure what I'm going to work on next year. We'll have to figure it out. I couldn't resist. I had to put the steering wheel and shaft onto the steering box and get up here and see how it felt. Of course, like I don't have the support here yet, of course. So that will bolt to the casting. I've just got it propped up on my knees, but it'll sit approximately there. And it's pretty impressive how tight everything is. Well, it's not really surprising, I guess, because it's a brand new steering box. But if I turn the wheel, you know, starts turning that way, starts turning that way. There's basically almost zero play, so that's really impressive. Should be one of the best steering 612s out there. One thing I will have to keep in mind when I put this all together for the final time is what position I want the spinner knob on. Well, it's not really a spinner knob since it doesn't spin. Wheel knob? Wheel stud? What would you call this? Because yeah, I don't know if I've ever talked about that either. The early ones, at least, didn't have the spinner knob on it like the 2035 wheels do. And it even shows in the parts book and stuff. You can clearly see the picture where there's just a straight shaft like this. It's not as if mine has been taken off or modified or changed. This is how they were. So I'm going to leave it like that. But anyway, what I was saying is when I put it all together, I can decide what orientation I want that in. Because right now I could change it 180 by taking the pin out of the bell there and turning the shaft 180, so I could have it here or here at this point. If I wanted it, say, in some other position, I would have to take the box off, put it to where I want it, put the box back on, and engage the gears basically in a little bit different position. So you can put that wherever you want. So. But yeah, it seems like it should be a pretty comfortable position. You know, your clutch and your shifting levers will be there, and your throttle lever will be here. So yeah, get pretty excited. Things are coming together here. Well, I'm reminded why I don't like welding. Why I never really got good at it, because I don't like it. I got this thing all tuned up though. No more Swiss cheese. Not the most beautiful thing in the world, but I think it'll, once I do a little more metal finishing and sanding, and it'll be pretty good. So that's done. Like I said, frustrating because I bet you it was 4 or 5 times got it where I thought it was done, and I hold it up to the light and I'd find another couple pinholes. So I'd weld them up and grind them, and then I'd hold it up to the light and I found a couple more pinholes. It was getting old. I got this new toolbox door, the corners welded up, same story. A little more metal finishing and that'll be done. About time to go home, but I was looking at the hinges here a little bit. Because if you remember way back in one of the first videos when we were disassembling the main part at home, there was little spacers, little shims basically, to make this this hinge kick out to the side, so everything would line up right from the factory. They had it shimmed. And it's like, wow, that's weird. So I was looking at it a little bit more here today, and same story with my new door, of course. It doesn't fit very nicely. But then I got looking, well, so they got a little bit of an offset to them, right? The pin and the barrel of the hinge, so to speak. So I took and I flipped this one around this part. I flipped it 180 just out of curiosity. And let's see if I can hold this and show you at the same time. Of course, it doesn't fit in the casting because it's not beveled. But if I were to put a little bit of a bevel on here, it would. But if I set it here flat on the side, look at that. It magically lines up where it should. So I'm going to have to think about that here this week. When I come back next weekend, I might just put them together backwards, so to speak, from the way they were, because I think it's going to line up a whole lot better. And nobody else will know the difference but you and me. And if you don't tell, I won't. So I almost wonder if that was a little bit of an oversight from New. You know, did they mean to bevel that side, or really should it have been this side? It's kind of strange that they would have it that far off otherwise. You know what I mean? I mean, I could see if little inconsistencies in castings or whatever, but it's probably whatever, over an 1/8 inch off, probably closer to a quarter by the time you're done. So I'm like, I don't know, that's kind of strange, but I'll investigate that a little bit more next weekend. Time to go home, make supper, call it a week here. But yeah, we should be able to finish up this door and put the knob on, finish off these riveting these hinges on, figure that out, and then this toolbox door will be done. So then I can go back to focusing on more important things. I really should be spending more time on the engine stuff, but at the same time, I'm trying to wrap up these loose ends a little bit, you know. So, like I said, I think I'm going to call her a week here. I thank y'all for watching, and we'll see you next week.